Hey guys, we want to thank Cap City Tees for sponsoring today's episode. That's right, Cap City Tees, the #1 printing company in Sacramento. Well, at least in our hearts. Cap City Tees is an amazing company putting out amazing quality at, most importantly, amazing prices. They are in line with any major retailer out there. Now, if you're in need of getting a shirt screen printed or embroidered, whether that's your local soccer team or basketball team or volleyball team or all the way up to corporate clothing, Cap City Tees is the place to go. So if you're in need or if you're in want, reach out to Cap City Tees at capcitytees.com or capcitytees@gmail.com. That's capcitytees@gmail.com. Welcome to the Hard Money Show, where we talk about real estate, home loans, and media. On today's episode, we talk about unleashing the power of incremental success in your everyday life. Now, this is extremely applicable, obviously, to people in the industry for this podcast, for real estate, for home loans, people doing, media in this space. But really, this kind of branches over everything. It's kind of an ageless, timeless, genderless topic. It really is just something that can be extremely impactful for everybody, whether you're trying to pursue entrepreneurship or you just want to find success in whatever industry it is that you work in. This is something that really needs to be given a lot of consideration, and I believe isn't. A lot of people really don't sit back and think about this, and oftentimes I think that this really resonates and really kind of comes out in people in negative thoughts, low self-esteem, depression, all of these sort of things, because people don't understand how to appreciate and utilize small wins to develop big wins later. And that's what I want to talk about today. That's what I want to dive into. Now, I'm going to do my best to try to keep this as straightforward as possible, but forgive me if I go a little bit off track, because this is something that I've been giving a lot of consideration to. And really, for me, this is something that has helped me to keep a positive mindset ever since I was a little kid. So the first thing I really want to kind of touch on is, what are small wins really, right? Why are these important? I think recognizing and celebrating the minor achievements that we have and how that contributes to our overall progress is so important. It often feels like winning is really difficult the older you get, right? For me, growing up as an athlete, and being sort of competitive at really everything, but that was kind of the thing that I really gravitated towards. It's a lot easier to find success in that if you try really hard. Now, I understand that not everybody can be the best on the team. Not everybody can be the captain, and not everybody can hit, the game-winning shot or whatever it is. But that's kind of the point, right? We can find small wins to help us. And really kind of the question comes down to is, why is this important, right? What is kind of some of the psychology behind this, right? When we're exploring how the victories of boosting confidence, enhancing motivation, and creative positive feedback, how that works for us, that's really kind of where we need to start. Because ultimately, the way we perceive our wins is really what the wins are. If we have these small wins, but we don't perceive them, if we don't really utilize them and we don't see them in a way that's positive, then it's very easy for these not to boost your confidence, for them not to be motivators, right? And that's kind of the thing. And I myself kind of run into this issue where, you kind of devalue the things you're doing. You forget kind of how you're achieving in this world. You kind of forget. And one of the things that I saw not too long ago was this thing about how if you want to learn a new skill set, contribute 18 minutes a day, every day. 18 minutes, that's it. 18 minutes every day. If you did that for a year, you would be in the top 1% in the world of people who are learning that skill set. Now, that sounds crazy at only 18 minutes a day, but I kind of gave it some thought and I thought, well, there's a lot of people in the world and not everybody fixates on the same thing, right? Maybe somebody wants to be good at piano, maybe somebody wants to learn how to code or wants to learn a language. Whatever the case may be, it's not unrealistic to think that there's only a small, in actuality, there's only a small group of people trying to get good at a specific thing. And even of the people trying to do it, there's a small percentage of people who will actually commit to those 18 minutes a day. And some things I'm really good at committing to, and other things I have a little bit more trouble with. Coding is a good example of that. I've been trying to learn how to code, and it's difficult. It's hard to only commit 18 minutes to that because of, trying to learn it. And so it's not like I'm unrealistic and I don't understand it. But my point being is that when we're doing these little things, the way we perceive them might not seem like wins, right? But the fact that you showed up, the fact that you did it that day is a win. And you need to look at it that way. And it's being able to look at it that way and being able to cultivate positive mindset from those experiences is really what's going to lead to long-term success, right? That's really the big thing. Embracing the belief that every step forward, no matter how small, propels you towards your ultimate goal, right? That's really the most important thing. These small steps, you have to believe that. You have to have that mindset, and you have to understand these type of things. And now, I know this might seem like, well, yeah, I kind of do that, but the reason for this podcast is we're trying to help people achieve real success, tangible goal meeting. Now, for people who aren't in real estate and who aren't in home loans, this is just maybe an entertainment for you, then maybe this isn't going to resonate with much. But if you're an entrepreneur or if you've been in a sales position or you're trying to achieve a goal, this should start to resonate with you. This should start to make sense because it can be really lonely. It can be really tough. And we need to have things that make us driven. We need to have challenges in our life. But ultimately, the way we perceive them, the way they make us feel is kind of the most important part, right? Because if we're doing things that we want to do to make ourselves better, but then they're just making us feel worse all the time, it's very unlikely that you're going to stick with these sort of things, right? So that's where I kind of wanted to start, right? We have these small wins. We really kind of want to understand why they're important. We want to understand how we can make them important, how we can make them significant. And really ultimately is how do we harness that, right? How do we take that to help us be successful in this industry, in all industries? Now, I can do podcasts on, how to do negotiations, how do you fill out a contract. We do a lot of things like those, right? Kind of these clinics and these modules and things like that. But the thing is when we look at this industry, why are people leaving? Why are people not finding success? Why is the average sale per year between 4 and 6 homes per realtor, right? There's a shortage of homes right now, especially, but the people in your sphere could be far more successful than they are, right? And so really that's why this kind of comes into mind is how do we utilize this kind of mindset? How do we utilize small wins and carry this with us every day to continue to build growth, to build success, right? Ultimately what we want to try to do is figure out how do we leverage small wins for big opportunities, right? Understanding how each victory can open a door and create new possibilities. That's sort of the thing that I think a lot of people miss. They don't fully grasp that doing these things, finding these small wins, setting these small goals and achieving them, not only how they can build day to day positivity in your life, how they can help you overcome a lot of issues that you may having, but also how they're going to lead to other avenues, other doors. And for me, I can say that this has kind of been, what it is for me, because think about it. If you've listened to this podcast and that you know that the way I got into real estate was through media, right? That's my background. Now, before that, the way that I got into media was, kind of twofold. One was because I was in clubs in college and I liked taking photos and I kind of wanted to learn about it and I wanted to be useful. So I took a chance and I started learning that. The other thing was that I was in sales and I wanted to find a better way to sell myself, right? And so you kind of take those things and it goes, I'm in college. I decide that I want to kind of learn how to do graphic design. And so I learned how to do that. Then that opens a door and I'm like, okay, now I can do videography and photography. And I learn how to do those things. And then that kind of expands into other sort of things like video color grading, audio design, audio development, right? Beat making. And all of that stuff opened up doors, not only in the way of what I was doing, but also pretty much every job I've ever gone to, they've had terrible media and terrible, branding, no really engagement on anywhere. And I've been the person that, even though that wasn't necessarily the thing I got hired for, it always became a component of my job. So I've been doing this for over 10 years, right? Finding companies that don't know how to utilize their space, who don't know how to utilize their brand. And it's all because I took these small things, I set small goals for myself, and I did it over a long period. And this is where I really see issues within this industry is people come in and granted, I understand that most people that come into the real estate and home loan industry, they may need to make money very quickly, right? They're making a career change. And so they don't have sort of the same luxury that I have because of the position that I'm in with the company that I'm with and how I have a little bit of more flexibility. So I understand that. But the thing is that you can't jump into stuff super unless you already know it. I mean, that means you've already taken chances, right? But unless you already know it, then it's sort of difficult to start to make those large jumps. And when you start to make these really large jumps, you fail. And then you either start to feel really bad that you're not achieving, or you just stop doing it because you're like, this isn't working. It's not that it's not working. It's just you didn't set tangible goals that were achievable that would help you build success over time. And I've gotten a lot better at this because I've started to realize that even though I have the abilities and I'll devote the time to doing it, I realized that by setting smaller goals for myself, I feel a lot better about the process. I'll engage in it a lot more. This podcast is a good example of that. I tried to go all in about 3 times on a podcast before this, and it just wasn't catching. I couldn't figure out what it was, and it was too much. I was involving too many people, and it just wasn't working. And when I started this podcast, I said, look, I'm going to make a podcast. Luckily, I have equipment. Luckily, I have everything I need, but I'm not going to go super hard into it. I'm going to make it work the way that I need to make it work. And then I'll go from there. And I started with just having a hosting site and just setting up some basic stuff. And over, the last 7 months, that's progressed to a 2 camera setup, to my, and I've had this stuff, but setting it up, getting it to work correctly the way I want, having all my audio interfaces, having all my, computer setups, having my screens, having my cameras, having the audio, really kind of diving into developing the audio in Adobe, which is, what I use and things like that. I found tangible ways to do it and I felt a lot better about this process. Now, could I have just spent 20 hours in a week, 40 hours in a week and just learned all of it and grind it out? Yeah, I could have, but it's felt a lot more organic to do it this way, right? And what it's allowed me to do is it's allowed me to develop a learning mindset, right? I'm continually investing in my education and staying updated on what's going on, not only in the media space, but because this podcast is about real estate and home loans, that as well, right? The more I do for this, the more I work with other people, the more I'm able to learn more about our industry, learn tricks and traits that I can share with you guys, but also take for myself. And that's been sort of the benefit of doing this. And keep in mind, this is only one thing that I do in this space. So I'd have the podcast. One of my guests that I had on before, Lisa, her and I are developing right now a live show that we do every Friday morning on Facebook. So we have 2 of those out already. And again, that's something that we're sort of developing slowly as well. We're trying to do it as high quality as we can, but I have this continuing learning mindset and I use that to set these small goals for them to be, achievable. And that's really where we're kind of moving forward. That's where we really need to start to settle into this process and find ways to challenge ourselves, but also a way to find success. Now, this kind of leads me into something that, has to do with these kind of small goal settings. And luckily in our industry, we get to do this a lot, but we get to build strategic partnerships. We get to explore the power of teaming up with like-minded individuals to combine our strengths and achieve mutual success, right? And that's been really fun for me. That's why I really like the position I'm currently in where, I essentially do LOing and I do kind of org development stuff. And then I have my partnerships with my realtors and I get to really develop those and we get to make tangible goals together. Now, understand that some people may want to work at a pace that you're not comfortable with, and you just have to really, I just had this conversation essentially, and I said, hey, look, like I have a lot going on. I want to do this. I love to do this, but I have to set boundaries for myself. I want to understand your boundaries, and I want us to work at a pace that everybody's comfortable with and that we're going to find success. But ultimately, we're setting goals that we can achieve that we're both comfortable with it, and we're breaking this down in a way that will allow us to be successful, right? So it's that same sort of thing, right? It's setting these goals, but with a partner, right? And this could be, with a business partner, it could be with your actual partner. But ultimately, this is kind of an extremely important part of this is we're developing this sort of mindset. We're setting these small goals. We're not fully understanding where this might lead us in the future, right? We're hoping we do. And a good example of that is sort of like door knocking, right? We hope that handing out 1,000 flyers is going to lead to, 1 to 5 sales. But we don't really consider what those everyday kind of achievements look like for us, right? You're learning to communicate better with people. You're learning how to follow through on your, with your time. You're learning the time management. You're learning all of these things that are really applicable to long-term success. And it's not till the long-term comes that you really understand and appreciate all the work that you already did, right? Now, I want to jump into something that goes along with this, but it's a kind of taking a step back a little bit, and it's navigating the challenges and how that builds resilience, right? We have to learn to embrace setbacks as learning experiences. We have to understand that failure is a stepping stone to growth and resilience. And this is kind of goes with the mindset earlier, because first we have to allow ourselves to believe that we're doing good, right? That's the first part. And once we start doing that, we'll start feeling a little bit better. But the thing is, the likelihood that you're going to miss a day, that you're going to have a problem, that you're going to get sick and you have to take a week off, that you're going to have a couple bad months or whatever it is, or that the strategy you chose to go with was just the wrong strategy, or the skills you decided to learn just aren't applicable right now, is very real world. And unless we learn that failure is okay, that it's a stepping stone, that it helps us, then we're going to have a lot of problems. And this is something that took me a really long time to understand, because I've always been super competitive. I've always hated losing. And that's why I was willing to work 10 times harder than everybody else, because I didn't want to lose. I wanted to be the best. I wanted to be number one. I just thought of failure as failure, right? It's just unacceptable. But as I've gotten older, as I've gotten more mature, and I've understood, and really, as you get older, you fail a lot, right? And so you start to understand, hopefully start to learn to change the way that you think about this, and you start to find it, you start to develop it into a way for it to be a tool for you. Now, you don't aim to fail, right? And we don't expect to fail. We go in with every intention to be successful. But if we do everything we possibly can, we give it 100%, and we fail, now we can say, hey, at that moment, I just didn't have what it took. This wasn't the right time, whatever the case may be. But that led to the failure, and that's okay, because now I know how to approach this again. Now I know how to move forward. This happened to me very recently in the last couple of days. I spent hours auditing this website, putting together all of these contacts that I need for an organization that I'm in. Had over 400 contacts. I do not know what happened, but the Excel that I did it on is gone. I cannot find it. Spent 2 hours trying to find it. Went back through everything, everywhere I possibly thought I could have saved it. I do not know what happened, but I just cannot find it. I failed. I don't know where it's at. I don't know. Didn't know. In the moment, I was like, I don't know what to do. Right? Like, this was so much work, and now it's gone. And yeah, I sat there for a couple minutes and I didn't feel great about it. And then I just sucked it up and I said, well, I made a mistake. And I went back, I made a new Excel. I named it something that would be very easy to recognize. I saved it in a folder. I put something in there, I resaved it, put something in there, resaved it, closed it, made sure I could find the document. Then I redid a good portion of it, and I'm still working on it. And I've essentially said, well, I made a mistake. I'll be good about not making that mistake again. But essentially, I've now developed a system to make sure I do it. Now, you would think that after going to undergrad and college and working for a very long time, these are mistakes that you wouldn't make. And I can honestly say it's a mistake that I've never made before. But now I have. And now I have to deal with that. But, I'm letting that develop me as a person, right? I'm learning to overcome obstacles, right? And that's really the important thing. I'm learning about, and really what this comes down to is learning how to develop a mindset, right? Learning how to understand how to cultivate adaptability, resilience, problem solving for these overall obstacles that you're going to have in your life, right? Nobody wants to go into their job, be the person that people can't count on, right? And that's what I believe, right? Some people act like they don't care, and that's fine. But I really believe that most people they want to contribute in some way. They want to be able to be counted on. They want to do well. And I understand some people are abused in that space and, they're taking advantage of. But for the most part, we want to find a way to do that. And when we understand that failure is a part of being successful, we start to understand that we have to find a way to turn those successes, to turn those challenges into positives. And the reason this is so important, and something that I've learned how to do and I'm getting much better at, is I've learned how to take negatives, turn them into positives extremely quickly. And the reason this is important is because we're going to fail, we're going to have problems, and ultimately, the quicker you can understand and essentially convince yourself that this is okay, that you're going to find a way to fix it, the quicker you can get back to setting these small goals for success, right? Some people, this could take days, this could take weeks, it could take years, right? They have, depending on how big the failure is, some people have a failure that lasts a lifetime and they just can never get over it. Now, hopefully that's not going to be something that happens to you, but in this instance, when we're having these failures, we have to find a way to overcome them quickly. And we have to say, okay, that was a failure. How do I move on? How do I make things better right now? And that's really kind of leads me into the last thing that I want to talk about when we're talking about this, is kind of a vision, a strategy, sort of the big picture of what you're looking for right now. Because we've talked about these small things. We've talked about how these small wins, how these small losses can manifest into larger things. And those larger things are important, but eventually you need to start to cultivate some sort of idea of what that's going to look like. And you may have had an idea of it and it maybe is redeveloped, right? So defining your vision, establishing a clear, specific, long-term goal that guides you in whatever endeavor you're going for, right? Whether that's real estate, whether that's home loans, media, appraising, whatever it is, you have to develop this clear vision for yourselves. And this is why entrepreneurship is so interesting, because even as an individual, the way you develop your life has to be very similar to the same way you develop a business. And what do businesses do very closely to starting their business? They develop a vision, right? Almost everybody who's worked for any large corporate place, either nonprofit or nonprofit or for profit, they have a vision, right? They have a mission statement, however they phrase it. But somebody thought of that because they said, hey, this is really what we want the identity of our organization to be. And we sometimes forget about that as individuals because we don't feel as much as like we are a business. But as you're in this longer, you start to realize like it really is. And it could help you to establish this sort of mission for yourself, right? And we're starting to get a lot more people on the podcast like this who are mission-oriented realtors. It's less about how many realtors can I put into, or how many individuals can I put into a property this year, and more about what sort of impacts can I make in my community? How can I shift the narrative of what it is to be a homeowner and help people who maybe can? This is becoming more and more prevalent in California as it becomes harder and harder to become a homeowner. We're starting to see a lot more people that are mission driven like that in this industry. And I think that's great. It's not necessarily the direction that I'm going, not to say that I don't want to help people and things like that, but I'm sort of thinking kind of bigger picture that I want to be more impactful for, other realtors, other loan officers, to help them be a bigger impact in our community, right? So that's really important. And by creating a strategic plan, breaking down your vision and accountable steps, creating milestones, creating timelines, you're going to start to be able to develop that vision. And you're going to start to be able to develop that into a bigger picture, right? It's extremely important to think about these things as you're in this, because it often feels like people who are newer in this industry, maybe even established, haven't thought about this because they're so concerned about how to do the actual job. Then how do I actually get in front of people? Some people aren't good at talking to people. Some people are terrible at networking. Some people don't like cold calling. They can't go door knocking, whatever the case may be. They're sort of fixated on that, and they spend a lot of their time trying to develop, an image of themselves. But I kind of say this is where my branding side comes in and I say, well, you want to do all of these things and you want to put all of this content out, but what even is that brand, right? What even is that vision? What is your mission? What are you putting out to the community? Is it just a photo of yourself? What does that mean really, right? Because we've become a lot more intuitive as it comes to marketing, right? We look at it and we say, this is just blatant like information that you're putting out. It doesn't really mean anything. Like, great, I know what you want me to hear, but I don't understand who you are as a company. I don't understand what you guys are trying to do, what your purpose is. All of this sort of things. Why is this important? And so people get so ingrained in this idea, like really upfront, like I want to put media, like put stuff out. And I'm like, for what? Like, you don't even know who you are in this space. Let's figure that out first, right? What is your mission? What are your goals besides, trying to put food on your table? I understand that, right? But, if you want to work in the luxury market, or if you want to work at helping low income, or your goal is to do condos or whatever it sort of is, right? And maybe you're just open to everything and that's great. But, what sort of realtor do you want to be? It's important to do that. Now, in this way, you're able to sort of utilize that. Once you have that, you can start to utilize, market trends that are happening, identify emerging opportunities, leverage them to gain competitive edge in your industry. It's become so much easier to do this. So much easier because of all the analytics, right? It was already hard enough to just get on social media 10 years ago and like really win at it, because you didn't have any kind of metrics to super show you how things were working out. YouTube was really kind of the earliest, I think, adopter of that. As far as maybe Facebook as well, but really I kind of saw it on YouTube because that's where a lot of people were making money, and it's everywhere now, right? Instagram, TikTok. I mean, people are monetizing here left and right on that, right? So because you can monetize, because you can get the trends, and you can go look up what's trending now, you can find a way to put your mission and identity and match it up with current trends that are happening and find a way to have impact in that community, right? Now, we don't believe 100% in leveraging on social media because unless you're like involved in a TV show or something like that, the amount of time that goes into you developing your brand versus the amount of time you should be networking and trying to get people in your door, you got to find a way to measure that, but and find success in that. But ultimately, what it comes down to is setting those small goals up, setting the identity and things like that to find success. And we're doing that in kind of all of these other components. Now, really, the last part of this is taking time to acknowledge and celebrate each of your achievements, reinforcing a positive mindset and fueling future success. That's really the key thing, right? We go through all of this, and if you can take anything from this, right? I know it's a lot, but if you can take anything from this, set small goals, be proud of the goals that you're setting, and then celebrate when you do achieve those goals. And if you don't achieve those goals, it's okay. Don't be super hard on yourself. Understand you failed. That's okay. Find a way to find success. Okay. So I know this is a little bit different than what we normally talk about on the podcast, but I just thought that it was so important. I want to talk about stuff like this a little bit more because ultimately the reason people are failing is not because they can't figure out how to do a contract. It's not because they can't figure out how to have a simple conversation with somebody about real estate. It's not because they can't figure out how to find a networking group and go to a chamber of commerce meeting. These are not the reasons they're failing. The reason they're failing, in my opinion, is that they're not setting these small achievable goals, right? And now there's a whole nother thing that I want to talk about on follow through, which is always my number one thing. But right now, this is kind of the big one, right? The big thing that can help you find success. And if you're not finding the success that you want yet, these are some things that you should really consider, finding a way to adapt this sort of mentality and structure into your business plan, right? And it really comes down to small wins every day. Every day, you need to be doing something to try to win in this industry. And some people might find it quicker than others. Just depends on your personality, depends on a little bit of luck and timing and your community. But over time, with consistently, you will find success. So I hope that was helpful. Thank you guys for tuning in. As always, this is the Hard Money Show where we talk about real estate, home loans, and media. You guys have a great day.